Unity of Houston is an inclusive church where we seek to understand and live the teachings of Jesus and other spiritual masters. At Unity, we welcome all people from all spiritual paths and every walk of life. We celebrate the diversity of our city and of our world, and we teach love, tolerance, and oneness, seeking to live in harmony with open minds and open hearts.
Wherever you are in your spiritual path, you are always welcome at Unity. Join us and discover that the life of your dreams is already within you.
So I'll be sharing about taking refuge. The words that we use here in this ministry matter. We're thoughtful in how we name things. Who here knows the name of the big building that we meet in on Sundays here at Unity of Houston? Sanctuary, yes. So we may think, oh, that's just a word for a building. The word is very purposeful. Of course, the pyramid is also a sanctuary. The word sanctuary, it derives from the Latin sanctus, means holy. Sanctuary means a holy place, a place of respite, a place of refuge, and also a place of safety. There's a term or an idiom, seeking sanctuary, that people would do this as a practice that since the early Middle Ages in Europe until about the 17th century, churches invited those who were seeking the right of asylum. They could be refugees, they could be persecuted people, or even criminals, were allowed to be protected by this holy place until they were able to find a means to move forward. This is not something that was offered in the United States. I think about the Disney movie, The Hunchback of Notre Dame, and Quasimodo shouting, "Sanctuary, sanctuary." That was something that was a part of what a church offered, a safe space for you to know that there would be no judgment, persecution, or harm come to you in this space. And so in the turmoil that we find ourselves in the world, with, of course, the war that is happening, many of us still recovering from the effects of the pandemic, whether it affected you personally or your family, friends, other circumstances, and many other things that are going on in our world. Where do you seek refuge from all of that? Where do you seek refuge? We're a society that has learned to take refuge in our work, that if we have things going on, well, we tend to overwork, dive into our work more, rather than to confront the real turmoil, which we know is happening within us. Not only outside of us, it's happening within us. And we can express our love and our care for others by delving into our work, by working even harder. But if we're not present for them, how can we really express our love to them? And this is the message that Thich Nhat Hanh brings us in this chapter. We're now looking at chapter 8 of Living Buddha, Living Christ. So he is bringing together these great teachings of Jesus Christ and the Buddha to see how they harmonize together and how knowing both can really serve us on our spiritual path and give us some insights in whichever way is your path, and understanding another path and allowing it to enrich you. So we're taking refuge. Thich Nhat Hanh tells us that every spiritual path has a devotional and a transformational practice, that this is part of spirituality. And these paths are meant to serve to relieve us from the suffering of the human experience, the troubles, the turmoil, the violence, the strife, and such. In Buddhism, the three refuges are called the three jewels. The three jewels, isn't that beautiful? Gems, sparkling, precious gems of Buddhism. I take refuge in the Buddha, I take refuge in the Dharma, and I take refuge in the Sangha. So the Buddha being the teacher, and also the consciousness that the Buddha represents, the Buddha consciousness, the Dharma, the teachings, and the Sangha, the sacred spiritual community. So in unity, we could say, I take refuge in the Christ, or in Christ consciousness. I take refuge in unity principles, or I take refuge in my unity church and my unity community. The Buddhists call this the Buddhist Trinity, the three refuges. I take refuge in the Buddha, the one who shows me the way in this life. I take refuge in the Dharma, the way of understanding and love. I take refuge in the Sangha, the community that lives in harmony and awareness. And we could apply these words to unity, of course, as well. I take refuge in the Christ within, unity principles, spiritual community. So now we can say this, and saying it only really indicates a willingness for us to practice it. We know it's words. Words have power when we affirm them. We teach that as unity principle. It's important to understand that our words can have a positive effect. When I was in ministerial school, one of my affirmations that I use is, I am a unity minister. I'm a unity minister, and it's not that I had to convince myself like I didn't know I was in ministerial school or something, but it was that awareness of holding that truth and then allowing my thoughts to align with it. Okay, I'm a unity minister, and so how would a unity minister approach this prayer meeting that I'm stepping into, or approach this talk that I'm giving, right? To know the truth about myself rather than to come from a place of fear or concern, right? So our words have meaning. Psalm 91:2 says, my refuge and my fortress, my God in whom I trust. And so we know God is our source, and we can truly take refuge in that awareness and returning to the truth of God as the truth of our being again and again. So knowing whatever turmoil that you're experiencing in your life, you can take refuge in God. So how do we do this? So there's a practice involved in doing this and knowing how to take refuge in God. The most pivotal practice that is taught in unity, that's considered the essential practice, is going into the silence, going into a time where we turn within, we relax, we concentrate on our awareness of God, and we enter into a space of silence where we are communing with Spirit and really experiencing our oneness. And this is entering into the inner sanctuary that we all have within us, feeling that safety of returning once again home. And Thich Nhat Hanh tells us that we are always seeking to return to a sense of stability and calm, which arises from our very first experience in the human body in the womb. That as a fetus, we felt ourselves fully nourished. We were protected from heat, from cold, from hunger. We were secure. And once we're born, we begin to cry. I'm disconnected from that wonderful, soothing, warm blanket of love that I felt in the womb. And we recognize our separation, and then we need to find ways to get our needs met outside of the womb. Thich Nhat Hanh said, we have yearned to return to the security of our mother's womb, that there's an innate yearning in all of us for that, and that in a world that is constantly changing, no matter how hard we try to keep things stable and the same, something will change, right? A news flash will arise and there's trouble somewhere, or someone died, or whatever it is, and our whole world can be shaken. We long for permanence. And even what we call ourself is impermanent, isn't it? Because we know we're evolving beings. So that sense of self changes as we mature and grow and have different experiences. We seek a refuge that we can rely upon, a refuge that we can trust. And taking refuge is not based on blind faith. It's based on a knowingness, just like we can count on the sun to be there every day, no matter what. We can count on there to be air and trees and the earth to give us some solid ground to stand on. We build a house, we want to build that and a solid foundation. We want to choose friends. We choose friends who are stable, who we can rely upon. So that taking refuge is a refuge in that in which we can rely upon, that is always present, no matter what is going on in outer conditions. The Buddha taught, be an island unto yourself. Take refuge in yourself and not in anything else. So in that inner sanctuary, that inner refuge. I was thinking about the name Buddha, and this is not anything that's in any book, but I was thinking about if you take the actual name itself, Buddha, so B-U-D-D, to me I thought about bud, like just a little growing seed that's sprouting from the earth. And that's the mindfulness that is in us. It's just a bud in its beginning. And we nurture it. And how do we nurture it? Through the ha, the H-A, the ha, through the ha representing the breath. The breath. That as we bring mindfulness to the breath, we nurture that seed of Buddha consciousness or Christ consciousness, divine consciousness. It's all the same, no matter what name you give it. It means the same consciousness that dwells within us. And through the mindfulness, through the breath, we return again and we nurture that, and it grows. It grows in our awareness. I've had many, many students who have told me over the years, my mind's too busy to meditate. My mind is just too active. I have too many thoughts. So give me something else to do. I'll walk a labyrinth. I'll color a mandala. Anything but sitting still and meditating, because my mind is just too active. So I don't know if you've had that experience, but that's something that we can use to keep us out of our practice. I just have too many thoughts. Well, that's why it's called a practice, right? Is to work with that, because you can meditate once, and it's not going to be as effective as if you meditate twice or 3 times or over time, right? Over a period of time. The more that you drink a glass of water, knowing that you're drinking the glass of water, your mindfulness will grow stronger, Thich Nhat Hanh says. So the more that you sit, knowing that you're sitting, the more that you walk, knowing that you're walking, the more that you breathe, knowing that you're breathing, or stand, knowing that you're standing. And it seems so simple, but how often do we go through life kind of unconsciously or mindlessly and just go through the motions, or thinking about the future, the past, what's coming up, worries, concerns, what's on the news, perhaps, or other things going on. And you can just simply practice mindfulness by being aware of, really, I am sitting now. I know I'm sitting. I have a body, and the body is sitting. So we're bringing a consciousness into the body, grounding it into the body. Thich Nhat Hanh says, mindfulness is the light that will show us the way. And the practice can seem so simple, and it's deeply profound and transformational. Our body is really a spiritual gift. It's a tool for awakening, and we can discount the body. When I was in ministerial school, my mentor, Robert Brummett, said that a lot of people come to ministerial school because they want to get out of the body, right? They want enlightenment. They want to transcend the body. And he said, you've got to go down before you go up. You've got to get into the body before you transcend it. And that how many of us are just in the mind, living in the mind. I love that idea of recognizing the body as a sacred gift for us to awaken through, and that's very central to Buddhist teachings. The human body, Thich Nhat Hanh says, is a microcosmos. It's a microcosm of the macrocosm, which is the absolute, the divine. So we're an expression or a point of consciousness in God. So when we say, one affirmation we say in unity, all that God is, I am, we're understanding that there is nothing that's in God that is not a part of me, and I am an expression of God, and so are you, and everyone is a unique expression. So I recognize that at the point of my being is all that God is at any point in consciousness. Thich Nhat Hanh said, God made humans so that humans can become God. So that's our journey, that's our path. We participate in the divinity of God by becoming that expression of God, or a mini-God. He uses that term, mini-God. We can think of it that way. And we do this through the body. There's no other way to do it, right? The body is our vehicle. And the practice we begin with is conscious breathing, just conscious breathing. And conscious breathing has such a healing quality to it, doesn't it? It brings calmness. It brings harmony to our being. And don't we show up so much differently in the world for each other when we're able to have that calmness and harmony at the very center of who we are and what we're doing. It's really the best thing that we can do with our time, and it will help us to feel that refuge. I know that whenever I go into meditation, I feel like that is something that no matter what, it can't be taken away from me. It is always present within, that I can open up to that spiritual awareness and space in my being, return home, that sense of returning home. And it is a true vehicle for helping others, because when we can establish ourselves in that kind of a practice, then we really are open and present to being a healing presence in the world. And there are spiritual practices that do not touch deeply into ourselves and do not stimulate the growth of that bud, that seed that is the Buddha or Christ consciousness within us. Thich Nhat Hanh shares this story. I thought it was pretty fun. He shares about this woman who would invoke the name of the Buddha hundreds of times throughout the day without ever really touching into the essence of that consciousness of the Buddha. She was going through it rotely. It was a ritual. She practiced this for 10 years. And still, she was filled with anger. She was filled with irritation. And her neighbor noticed this, that though he could hear her chanting always in her home, that she walked around easily triggered. And he knocked on her door while she was invoking the name of the Buddha again and again. And he shouted to her, "Miss Lai, open the door." And she was so annoyed. She was disturbed by this man, and that she struck her meditation bell very hard so that he would know that she was meditating. She was chanting the name of the Buddha. And she wanted him to stop disturbing her. But he kept calling, "Miss Lai, Miss Lai, Miss Lai, I need to speak to you." And she became furious, and she threw her bowl down on the ground. She stomped on the floor, and she shouted, "Can't you see I'm invoking the name of the Buddha? Why are you bothering me now?" And her neighbor replied, "I only called your name 12 times. And look how angry you've become. Imagine how angry the Buddha must have become after you calling his name for 10 years. So we can go through rituals of spiritual practice mechanically, and we can pray without really being present, just like Miss Lai did. There are Christians who do go through the motions of whatever it is, their service that they attend, with very little joy in their hearts or peace, and they practice the forms, they say the words, but they're not really experiencing the essence, the life, the love, the heart energy. That's why in Unity we talk about ourselves as heart-centered practitioners or truth students, heart-centered. Because if we really want to touch deeply into the living Buddha or the living Christ, we have to be centered in our hearts. We want to be. We desire to be, right? Because it is in our heart that we can water those seeds of mindfulness within us and practice essence, living from essence rather than ego. Living from essence again and again, making that choice. And when you do, your mind becomes clear and you attain that joy and equanimity that we seek. Taking refuge is something we can do every day. We can do it several times a day. We can do it in a moment, just taking a moment to consciously breathe. To notice when I'm driving, I'm just driving. I don't need to be trying to do other things, to multitask. We think we have to really maximize every moment, right? Got to get a few things done while I'm just sitting here while you're driving. And imagine if everyone in our city consciously drove. Do you think we'd have less accidents? A lot less, right? A lot. Our minds are all over the place often. So when you feel agitated, annoyed, fearful, angry, what have you, whatever is disturbing you, you can go back to what Thich Nhat Hanh calls your island of mindfulness, that you can be an island unto yourself and experience the sanctuary that is your very being and the very breath that you breathe, that has a natural spiritual rhythm that connects you with the rhythm of the earth and the rhythm of all life. He says, don't wait until you are hit by a wave to go back to your island. How many times do we return to our spiritual practice after we've been through something? Oh, need to go back to church, need to start meditating again, or start doing those affirmations again. And what Thich Nhat Hanh encourages us to do is to keep with a regular practice. Because when we do that, then when the wave comes, we can respond to it more mindfully rather than react, rather than be triggered like Miss Lai and just be angry and frustrated all the time. When you practice living mindfully daily, it becomes a habit and it becomes easier, because then it becomes who you are, not something you're doing, because it's a part of you. It's your way of life. When a difficult moment arises, it will be natural to take that refuge. To take the refuge. Now, everything we do is an opportunity to take refuge: sitting, breathing, eating, drinking, tea, all of that can be done in mindfulness. When we know that we're breathing, we're really present, and our bodies and our minds become united. And when we touch life deeply in this way, that is when we can really be a healing presence in the world. And we know that the world could really use more healing presence, especially in this time. So thank you for your attention tonight and for honoring your practice. Namaste.
Oh, thank you, Reverend Jeanmarie. That was lovely, and I marveled at that. The Buddhist tradition of taking refuge. It is so beautiful, rather than referring back, or other ways it could be said, like remembering this or doing this, or always, like I don't know, like a teaching or of some sort. But taking refuge, to me, feels like it's a place of balm. It's a place that you remove yourself from the challenge or the fear or the pain or the despair or whatever you're feeling, you take it with you, I suppose, but that you surround yourself with the truth, with what is rather than what it feels like or what it seems like or what it has come to be. I mean, there's it feels like a 360, it feels like I'm surrounded by it. And that's so lovely to think of, Christ consciousness for us and our principles that do really land for us, and the community that reflects it back to us, who we are and how we appear, and reminding us of how they see us rather than how we see ourselves. So I love that notion. So thank you for bringing that to us tonight.
Yes, absolutely. That intention, too, of that coming to your practice with an intention to experience refuge. I can notice my own tendencies, especially when I first started practicing meditation, to want to get it right, to feel that I've got to sit the right way and breathe the right way and not think and then it became like a struggle. It became stressful for me. Like, oh, I don't want to do that. It's stressful. It's like, no, wait. My whole perspective is off. This is a refuge. This is a time of calm and peace, so we can really let that go. That there's no wrong way to do it. That you just keep bringing your attention back again and again, and that it's peaceful. Like, okay, this is a healthful practice, and so I think it's really helpful to notice when the ego wants to take a hold of it and do it the right way, and that there's a lot of openness in that.
Well, I appreciate it also as you, toward the end of your talk, you're talking about how there are simple portals into this experience too. Just being mindful that you are driving while you're driving. The zen of orange peeling, or something like that. You're just in the moment that you're in the moment. I want to frame it as a touchstone. That's meaningful to me, but it means exactly the same thing as taking refuge. But taking refuge, for me, has connotations of a moment that comes and goes. And a touchstone also comes and goes, but it's more foundational in the way I'm thinking of it anyway. And it is born of a long practice that includes meditation, that includes spiritual inquiry through discussion, that includes music, that includes, worship and service. But it is a quality of relatedness, of refuge, of conscious contact with my place in the world, and just as a basis from which I live my entire life. Now, when the circumstances are sweet, the weather's right, and I've got good food, and I've been exercising regularly, and I can just kind of fall back into it, it's like, yes, taking refuge, my touchstone. But it's in the storms of life where you need to then call on it like a practice, and you can go to that same place, and it can be done in an instant. It starts with choice, and then then there's a little bit of inertia of just the way you've sort of built the spiritual muscles that allow you to get there. But it is available all the time. We just have to. But I would say that's a fairly advanced claim. I think somebody who's relatively new to a spiritual practice or new in recovery, that's an aspiration. You have to build in some laps in order to really have that foundation to draw upon.
Yes, and when we can go on a retreat or somewhere where you can really commit a block of time to practicing, and then when you're in your everyday life, you can kind of tap into that, or you can tap into that experience. I did a 4-day silent retreat last year, and I noticed that I was so centered in my breath, I had to re-enter a little bit after that, because I really felt just such a presence, and there was that, just a lot, it felt like a lot of life happening once I was out of that silent space. But that having had that very deep experience of being in the silence for 4 days, I noticed that when I was able to re-enter my practice, it's like Karen said before, it created a groove. It's like you go right back into that groove in a way that you're able to know that experience within.
I love the way you also talked about, moving out of the mind and back into the heart, that really, if you think about those 3 refuges, as refugi, however you want to say that, that you're always going to connect with Christ consciousness in the heart. You're going to be able to really feel the truth of principle in the heart. You're going to really feel the connection with your community in the heart. You're always going to know this is your touchstone. Sorry, I had some dental surgery, so if I and I'm using lots of S's. I'm trying really hard. I can't think of any words that don't have S in them. So suffering succotash. That's what I've been practicing saying that like Daffy Duck or something. But stay with me on this. It in the heart, which is a good word, is really the place where everything comes together. And, if we don't remember even 3 refuges, if we don't remember anything from tonight, if all we ever remember is to go back to the heart, where's the love? How can I feel in this moment? How can I relate? How can I have compassion for myself? How can I have compassion for another person? How can I feel the truth of any capital word I can name? Peace, love, life, light, any capital word at all. Can I feel the truth of that? And that's, to me, is taking refuge. I was saying it felt like it was around me, but when it's within me, it is actually now 360 out from me, right? So it's kind of like it becomes me, and like you were saying, Robert, we both have a mutual mentor in him. I really love his teaching and the way he is, but the whole idea of being in the body, really rooting ourselves in the humanity. It is the lesson. This is the teaching tool. This is the tool of teaching. Which I'm a student tonight of, trying to figure out a way to manage life. So it really is constantly calling us into a deeper awareness, forgiveness, lovingness, compassion, and it will always translate into every other relationship and every other gift. And I feel like I'm taking refuge tonight from your lesson and from what you've offered. So thank you.
I think your voice just makes you even more adorable and lovable. I do.
Yeah, you're expressing beautifely.
Yes.
I'm totally with you. Well, one more thing I wanted to frame about what you said, Jeanmarie, that inspired me, and I'm going to chew on. I'm going to figure out how I want to apply this practice in my life, and it is something you referenced from your your ministerial training, where you said, "I am a unity minister," and then what are the thoughts and behaviors that align with that assertion, that identification? And that's so powerful. It's beautiful when it's got the backdraft of spiritual truth behind it. But just on the pure human level, I am this. I claim this truth about myself, and therefore live my life in accordance with that identification. And then not only are my thoughts and behaviors in accordance with that possibility, but I will attract the opportunities consistent with that, and I will create the obstacles that prove it, that I have to overcome, I have to address as a challenge in order to stay true to this claim. But I just thought that was very useful and pithy, something that I can take away.
And it's simple enough for all of us to see how we want to show up and add that to our I am, which is our name for God.
Yeah, and that takes us back to the beautiful meditation, back to the I am again, just really where we started from the center and where we bring it back to. So how beautiful. So thank you.
Thank you for watching this message today. I'd like to invite you to join us in person here on campus at Unity of Houston for Sunday morning or Wednesday evening services. If you can't be with us here on our campus, you can still join us live on Facebook or on our website, unityhouston.org, Sunday mornings at 11 a.m. Central.